Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today, as you'll have seen, we're going to run a session on collaboration with a modern SharePoint intranet. The session will be run by Andy Moore, who's one of our senior SharePoint consultants. The session is being recorded, and we will send the slides out later. I would also say you can't turn your video or your mic on, but please do drop any questions you have in the chat. We have a few people online that will be able to answer them, so we'd love to make this as interactive as possible. So yeah, without further ado, I hand over to Andy.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Like Ryan says, I'm Andy Moore. I'm the SharePoint consultant at Bridgewall, and we're going to talk a little bit about empowering collaboration with a modern SharePoint intranet. First of all, though, I'll tell you a little bit about I'll go through the agenda first. I'll first be telling you a little bit about who Bridgewall are, and then we'll get into the modern SharePoint experience, best practice, the building blocks of a good intranet, and something that I'm particularly passionate about trying to figure out, which we haven't quite done yet, is connecting teams in SharePoint. That's the slide kind of section finished. Then we'll be doing a bit of a live demonstration where I'll talk you through some of the concepts that have been covered in the slides. So Bridgewall were established in 2002. They are based in Glasgow. I say they because I'm based in Aberdeen, but as far as I know, I'm the only person that's not based in or around Glasgow. So it's good to get a trip down there every now and again. Our services are business applications. I'm part of that team. We build apps. We mostly work in applications like SharePoint, Power Apps, and anything in that Microsoft space. The other side of the company, we do managed IT services, servers and security and things like that. We're also in the water market with it's a water forecasting product called Trevi, which is used by water companies. We're a Microsoft partner in 4 areas: modern work, Azure infrastructure, Azure data and AI, and Azure digital and application innovation. This is what used to be called the gold and silver partner status. This has been replaced by these 4 more generic kind of groupings. And like I said, we work in Power Platform, Dynamics, Azure. And our customers, we've got a wide range of customers. Most recently joining us is STV. We're quite pleased with that one. That's been a good project. But there's lots of water companies, housing associations, some government departments in there, and a couple of banks and financial services companies. So, sorry, without a pause, jumping straight in. Why do intranets fail? These have been reasons haven't changed for many years. I've been working on intranet since about 2008, believe it or not. It appears to be my life work, although it's something you definitely fall into. That wasn't the plan. It's the worst one. And
Andy, sorry, your audio was breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry, is it? I just tapped my microphone. I'll just. Is that any better?
Not really.
You can't hear me at all.
That's better now.
Okay, so I think I have to not move. So yeah, a lack of adoption. That's the worst issue I think we have. Unclear governance. I feel that's less of an issue now as communications department have locked down who can create internet content. So it's not free for all. It was at one point. Poor maintenance and content sprawl can still be an issue though. A bad user experience and a confusing structure. I think some companies instinctively will put together quite a good intranet, but it can be a problem if too many departments are interfering with how it's structured. The benefits of a modern SharePoint intranet is it's unlike its 2013 and 2007 predecessors. It has quite a good user interface. It's mobile friendly, and it's very easy to build pages these days compared to how it used to be. There is, I'm going to say, continued investment in new features and improvements. I felt like that investment restarted recently, particularly over the last year. SharePoint hadn't changed for years, in my opinion, and suddenly in last year we started to see lots of new features appearing, especially around the page design. So I'm going to introduce you to a few of those a little later. The main benefit that I think that why it takes a lot of market share from a lot of other internet products is that it's integrated into your kind of working environment, like your Office documents and Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that. So what do companies we speak to want from their intranet? There is one particular catchphrase that
Andy, sorry, I think you are still breaking up a little bit. Maybe try with your video off or something.
Okay, yeah.
Just lift it, sorry.
I've moved the microphone closer to my mouth as well. Is that any better?
A little bit. I'll crack on. Sorry.
Okay, do you want me to try it without the headphones on? I'll try it. That's not
It
my,
seems to be a real mix. A few people are saying there's some audio issues, but some people seem to be hearing you fine. So
Okay,
I'm
right.
not sure. I'll leave you to it though.
So we think it's a little bit of. I'll try to speak a little slower and louder. It may be just a bandwidth issue then, is it? So what a lot of companies we say, particularly recently, we hear them saying is one thing, they want to create one version of the truth, which is kind of going to be the focus of this presentation a little bit. We're going to theorize on how you might do that, although believe me, it's not easy to do. So to create one version of the truth, I guess my thinking on this is that you have to corral all your users into one place and design a central universal menu for your company, which conveniently will appear on your intranet homepage. If you build this, if it's good enough and if it's diverse enough, you will get people coming back. And I think the best way to get people using the internet is to make them want to come back to it rather than to try and compel them to come back to it. So creating a universal menu, this will be a big focus of the demonstration. I'll show you how mine works. Build instructions into pages and don't just give them shortcuts. It is okay just to give them shortcuts, but I'm thinking about when it comes to, like, if you're going to link to a task in, say, an ERP system that maybe isn't very easy to use, consider between the intranet and that system, if you put a page that gives them a little bit of a breakdown and maybe a 10-step guide on how to follow the process, you can put in any guidance in there as well. Prioritizing user inductions. This gives you the chance to get to them before your colleagues do. If you may have a few old timers or even a few new people that work bad practice, it's good to get them to do their induction as early as possible, so they understand where things are before they start getting bad advice from people. Encouraging people to seek advice from subject matter experts. This is the collaboration side of the presentation. There is a section on this that we're looking at improving how Teams and the intranet are linked, and that'll all become clear a little later. And lastly, make the intranet a convenient place to access the widest range of content. I'm calling it a strategic choke point, like the Suez Canal. Once you get everyone using your intranet, you then essentially control what they see. So the more people you can get using the internet every day or every week, the more you can control how they're accessing information. More of a kind of abstract metaphor, creating the market square. We want to essentially build the town center for your organization. If you consider your company a network, we want to build the internet as the center of the network. So it's where everyone comes to get what they need. Complete a task, stay informed, find people with certain skills or access knowledge. Bundled into a place where you can learn everything and find anything. I mean, it's a big ask. This is obviously a goal to work towards. Keeping the users coming back is quite important. On the homepage, many intranets are very heavy on news. Many intranets are badly maintained. Many intranets are too focused on having millions and millions of links. It's about striking a balance between the two. You want to get people to read your news. If that's the case, you want to put it alongside the most popular accessed content, like the desk booking system, or even better, the holiday booking system, because everyone just loves that. Partnering with HR is my last bullet point there. That seems a bit of a strange one, but when HR communicate with the business, people tend to read their emails because their HR is in charge of pay and holidays and things like that. So if you ask the HR department to kind of collaborate with you and maybe preview content on the intranet before they send it out via email, so get HR to produce some exclusives for you and maybe consider putting them on the homepage. The way you do that is you send out an email that just drives people towards the intranet homepage. Check out the intranet homepage for more of that kind of thing. Making knowledge and expertise accessible. So something significant change during COVID that I think no one quite realized the impact it could have is that we all know we all went to work from home. We all started working in teams and stopped meeting in meeting rooms. So a lot of our conversations and a lot of the knowledge in conversations is now being captured as a data source in Teams. It's not particularly easy to exploit just now because it's in chats. But if that was to be moved into Teams, then you could essentially make your Teams data a source of knowledge, just like documentation. So I'll talk about a little bit about connecting with subject matter experts during the demo, but updating and creating profile properties in Azure so people can search for you more easily. This is something you can do, but by default, there won't be much in there. But if you want to put people's skills or expertise into your Azure profile, then it's a really good idea, and you really have to push your employees on updating them. Then your people search, you can search for people by skill rather than just by name. Linking praise to knowledge sharing. Praise is something that's being encouraged more and more in the workplace. But a lot of the praise systems I see don't tell you very much about what the person has done. So my thinking on this is to take a more academic approach, where if someone does good work, they publish it, not necessarily as a 300-page paper, but just publish the idea and publish why it went well, and help people to understand how that works. So the modern SharePoint experience. You can do a lot more with page designs here. A few of these are our demo sites. One's a prototype for a management system. The other one is the unfinished homepage for one of our clients, STV. There is a lot you can do with it compared to how before. It is improving greatly. It is not quite. You can't quite take it to where you could take a commercial website now. Even in something like Squarespace, you do have these templates and panels, but the internet design is still a bit further ahead than SharePoint, but it is starting to catch up. Best practices when using, so I'm just going to take a little drink of water. Best practices when implementing a SharePoint intranet. Appoint a senior stakeholder. This is someone who can really drive the project, and key stakeholders for every department site as well. People who are probably from IT or communications and are involved in or interested in this project. This one's quite important. Don't use your SharePoint permissions through the SharePoint interface. If you can, jump into admin.microsoft.com and manage your access through groups. It makes your groups reusable, and critically, it means all your permissions can be seen in one place. When you manage permissions through Pages or through SharePoint libraries, you have no one place to view all your permissions in your SharePoint libraries. From a design perspective, you want to focus on people's everyday needs as well as news, which we've touched on. Provide guidance and links to different tasks and activities. Making your intranet more task focused will encourage usage a lot more. Trying to modify and rearrange the design of the home page is quite a good idea as well. The human eye becomes blind to things it sees every day, so changing the shape of the page can quite often get people to reread the page. And focusing on a smaller number of campaigns and promotions rather than just hammering out a constant stream of news. Like, I worked at a company where they were publishing, I think it would be 4 or 5 news stories a day, and they were complaining about readership, and we had a bit of a time convincing them that they're probably, for the size of the company, the amount of output they were producing was probably a bit on the high side, and no one was really getting any time to read anything. Moving on to the building blocks of a good SharePoint intranet. This is quite important. State your objectives at the start. Set yourself a set of goals. These are my demonstration objectives, but they are very much the ones I use for customer intranets. Facilitate the effective communication of news, announcements, and change. It's more like a charter, I suppose, than stating your objectives. Provide access to everyday tasks like booking a desk or claiming expenses. Those are fairly small tasks. I would broaden it to go for major kind of corporate tasks as well. If you want to hire a new employee, I'm not suggesting you can do all of that through your intranet, but put a link to the process on there so at least the person can start from that point. The third objective is to provide access to departmental documents and files. Providing access to any web-based applications, ERPs, Oracle, SAP, this kind of thing. No reason you can't put a link in there, even though it's not Microsoft-based. Creating a place where users can learn and find support. That's quite an important one, and that can be bundled in with the last one. Help users find a colleague with specific expertise and shared interests. I think those last two are probably where we need to improve around the world, if you like. And if you're feeling courageous enough, measure yourselves against your objective at the end, and maybe it's very easy to kind of accept praise. It's a little harder to admit when you failed slightly. So it's always good to look at a project through a more judgmental lens and decide whether it could be improved. The second best practice I'll take you through is using user-orientated design. So instinctively, your leadership will try to shape your intranet into something that is a kind of digital replication of the shape of the company. That's very instinctive for them. They see an org chart, right? Make all the sites like an org chart, this kind of thing. It doesn't really work because on the day-to-day, that's not really how people work. People think in terms of what task am I doing next? That's what they're looking for. They're not thinking particularly in terms of hierarchical structures. So put the needs of your user over the needs of your organization. I'm not saying too much, but you really want the user to be serve the user's purposes first. Otherwise, you're not going to get the visitor numbers you're wanting for. So it should be a combination of the everyday needs of the user and serve the needs of the organization as well. Building good foundations. So it's you will have department and team sites, but you should also surface a bit of community and social content. News and campaigns are a core part of your intranet. Help and support should be a priority because I think when the help and support desk is well manned, you get the feeling that the intranet is being maintained if there's a person somewhere lurking behind it answering your questions. I built an intranet back in 2011 for a company of 37,000 people, and we put on a little help request form where you type in, you can ask anything into the help request form, and you would think that would cause an abundance of messages coming from thousands of people around the world. In an organization of 37,000, we got about one message every 2 weeks. So it really, you can actually make your little kind of support desk if you want to. Even if you're a larger organization, you can put that in there. Focus on tasks and activities. We have had a few questions about what's right for the hub and spoke system. Some people make a department a hub and it has lots of hub sites underneath it. That would be a larger organization style of hub. For most of our customers, we find a SharePoint hub can be accommodated by the hub as the home page, and all the other sites are spokes of the hub, or what we call associated sites. This allows you to have a global navigation that you only have to update in one place. Moving on to the department pages, a bit like providing tasks from your home page, it would be good to rethink your department as rather than just introducing the department, putting a photograph of the director and 2 paragraphs of his kind of ramble in there, which is really commonly what most companies will do. Think about providing services for your department page. This example page I have up there is an IT department, and it's kind of got a little bit of triage going on at the top. We don't want to be contacted by the users particularly. We want them to self-serve. So we've got the 3 big request things up there at the top: contact tech support, the password reset, or request something else like a device or some software. This reduces the time your staff are spending responding to basically users who can't find something. We'll go through this page in the live demo as well. This will be on that. Effective messaging, quite important as a building block. You want to be quite clear on your messages, keep them quite short. I quite like to communicate the entire message through the headline if I can, without using too many slogans, catchphrases, or kind of metaphors, if you like. This will be in the demo as well. From campaigning, I call them campaigns. You may on your lead item on your homepage, it may be a campaign, it may be a news story, but we jumble up the two depending on what's going on. I also separate what I call kind of alerts or announcements from the business. So more formal stuff like don't forget to do your expenses by the 31st of March, end of Q1 kind of thing. So maybe separate that out so there's 2 separate communications channels. And this is just about the slides you'll be glad to hear finished, and we'll move on to the demo. Connecting teams in SharePoint. This is kind of what I'm fiddling with at the moment. We're trying to see how I have the feeling that all the users right now are in Teams, but all the stuff is in SharePoint. So it's how do we unify the two? So And it could be to the benefit of both. We want the people in Teams to be using the content that's in SharePoint to make sure they're up using the correct version of a document, which will invariably be stored there and not stored in one of their chat file folders or anything like that. So getting that mutual benefit to both the intranet having more visitors coming from Teams and getting better content into Teams from SharePoint is kind of something I'm trying to think about at the moment. But it isn't easy. There are some features there, but they're not greatly interconnected at the moment. And like I mentioned before, making Teams channels a source of knowledge. This could be quite important in the future. I don't know if you're aware of the website Stack Exchange or Stock Exchange. It's a hugely successful question and answer, basically a forum chat that's the technology industry uses, and it seems to have every question you can imagine asking about programming on it. It's going to be very difficult for you to rebuild that. That's have millions of posts from millions of people. So, but you could no reason why you couldn't build a smaller version within the company. That's what we do. We're going to talk about this at a bit of length in the demo. This is moving people from chats into Teams and creating a network of subject matter experts. This is one question that popped up quite a bit after our last webinar. Could an intranet be formed out of a collection of teams? I understand the customer's pain here because there are a number of companies. You'll have 2 SharePoint sites for every department. You'll have a finance department that's been created as your intranet site, and then you'll have a team called finance, and it's a bit frustrating to have 2 of everything. Theoretically, there's no reason why you couldn't sew those together. My big concern about that is by using a collection of teams as your essentially as your intranet. Teams encourages you to upload documents into the Documents tab through one folder, and that goes into one particular library called the Documents library that's created with your SharePoint site. Now, as SharePoint kind of data structuring best practice, we encourage people not to put everything into one library, not just for volume reasons, but for data management reasons and also security reasons. This could be sensitive content, and we really encourage people to separate content out according to its kind of risk as a type of data. So using those default document store libraries that you see in Teams channels is maybe not something we would recommend. And lastly, on the connecting to Teams, some of you may or may not have seen this. This is Viva Connections. It's kind of a reproduction of that default page you get in. It looks quite a bit like the default page you get in Edge browser. You know, with all the slightly bizarre news that gets pushed to you. They've recreated something like that where you build your own little news page, and what we do with this is try to connect it as much as possible back to your intranet. So we'll show this in the demo, but it's the news is pulls the news in from the intranet. The departments I've got at the bottom just link back out to those intranet sites, and a lot of the content you'll see is pulled in from lists which exist in the intranet. This means you're not actually maintaining this page. It's just being fed from the SharePoint site. Right. So I'll just take a minute, and we'll get onto the live demo. Oop, that's the wrong one. Oh, there it is. Try to get this into full screen mode so we can all see it. There we go. So this is our demo intranet. It's our little homepage. It's kind of, I'll talk you through the building blocks of this page, and then we'll get into the detail. You'll see a lot from the presentation has appeared here. Starting kind of at the top, I touched on this concept of splitting up your business messaging from your big campaigns and your news. I've done a very literal interpretation of this on the top of the homepage. The big yellow block is the campaign. We're giving away a free pizza for people who register to the innovation workshop. They don't even need to go; they just need to win a prize draw just for registering. I'm not saying you should bribe your staff into visiting your intranet, but this would cover this idea of an exclusive. I have a company of certain many thousands of people. I can afford to give away a pizza a month to people to get them into the intranet. It might not be a bad idea. I've not seen it being done before. On the other side, the blue block is more of the formal business communications. It's this one's about. Don't forget it's month end. complete your timesheet, complete your expenses, so we can reconcile the accounts. This top bar is what I would call the communications bar. It's the there will be more news further down, but this is in print media. They used to call this above the fold. What you're seeing, that term comes from the side of the newspaper you could see when the newspaper was on the newspaper stands in the street. Don't ask me how old I am. So here we are below the fold, or some of it was above the fold. This is getting into the bulk of the content, if you like. And I'll just minimize this top bar as well so we can fit a bit more of it in. I'm starting on the far right-hand side column. We have essentially what I've surfaced the most popular content from anywhere in the internet. This could be a policy, a link to a system like Unit 4, Oracle, or whatever. Just try to pick up on the things that people use the most. There is a far more exhaustive list than this in the complete a task page, which I'll show you in a minute. I'm working backwards towards that main menu because that's the kind of most important thing to talk about. Middle column is the latest news. That's not a campaign. That's the perpetual news feed coming from either just your communications or around the business. And this kind of left-hand menu is this left-hand menu on the left here. If I just zoom in a little bit, Ryan, has that zoomed? I've used my touch screen zoom. Has that worked? Can you see? Well, anyway, I've tried to encompass. I want to get everyone using the system all the time, so I'm trying to make this menu as inclusive as possible. So there's a huge coverage in this menu. I know you're thinking that not all this stuff is managed in the department, but essentially what I'm doing with this menu is behind each of these, I have a page which has a bit more detail on it, and really the pages just link out to different content. So I'm just going to click on Find Documents. It's a very generic term, but it's rather than pushing people towards specifically a department, we get people looking for documents by type. So there's policies, and this is a good place to push all your kind of mandatory documents, if you like. So the policies, the management system stuff, branded materials, and PowerPoint slides. The other column you can show things like this is also covered in the departments page, but you can have departments in there: engineering, innovation, customer support, and that'll take you to the department document libraries or the department site. And then there's a third column for things like project files, regional documentation, and an option to search the company archives. So it's just a different way of cutting up what is quite a similar page that I'll show you now, which is the departmental page. I'm skipping over tasks. I want to come back to that because I want to do tasks and people and expertise last, because they're probably the more important ones. Departments and teams. So I'm accommodating both the organizational structure of the company, but also accommodating everything else by splitting these departments into two columns. You have the usual suspects on the left, the big guys, the big departments like HR and finance. Training and development is social activities, fitness and well-being is on the other side. So topics that people may be looking for, but potentially can't cover that aren't named a department. Sorry. I'm just going to jump into a department page. We've already touched on it in the slides. So this is the IT demo page, and like I mentioned before, I won't dwell too long on this. It is quite similar to the home page. They in turn offer their own kind of top links as well. News and promote their big ticket items, the big requests. You will not be able to do that for every department. IT is a very easy example to work from because they have very obvious processes like raising a ticket in there. But HR would be similar. Even finance, you could get people to their pensions and things like that quicker. So moving back to this main menu, app systems and tools. This is just a page of linking to lots of different applications. Try and get as many on there as you can. When your users decide that they can find everything here, you greatly increase the chances of them coming back over and over again, which is ultimately what you're trying to do here. If you want to create one source of the truth, the only way you can you can't force people to use certain things. You can't control permissions. It's not workable. The only thing you can do is potentially control where they access stuff from, which is why we do this. We put as much content we can in the intranet to get what we call audience capture. So we basically capture as much as the market share of the audience as we can. Help and support. This is a critical and underdeveloped page in a lot of departments. I widen it to cover much more than tech help. It's a good place to cover help, any kind of help, like accessibility, even career development, personal support, and as well as user guides and the normal technical training. Don't be afraid of putting a help request form on there as well. You will find that it's not as crazily busy as, like I said, as it could be. And that leaves us with, okay, yeah, the two big ones for this. Complete a task. This is different to the systems, because the systems and tool page uses applications and brand names. What we're doing here is creating an intuitive starting point to any task any department theoretically could perform for you. So there are loads in there. It doesn't matter whether this links to the login page for Oracle, or to a process flowchart for hiring a new employee, or to an online form, or just a policy even. It's good to just reference it somewhere, because then it means people can just find like a card index of all this stuff, anything they need to do. Once they discover this page, they aren't really going to go looking anywhere else for this information. So really, this is all about just kind of dominating the market against, so you get everyone back all the time. Okay, this is the kind of the newer one. People and expertise. So what's going on here is this is actually a list of Teams groups that my company has opened up by force. We've picked out a subject matter expert to represent each department. They'll know who they are. You might be one. They're normally people who are simultaneously very knowledgeable and very outgoing. They're the people who you can go to ask anything. It's converting that knowledge, turning that knowledge into a team, opening the team to the whole company, and encouraging people to go and ask a question on that team. I'm not going to click on it from here, because that's going to launch my personal team. So yeah, here we are in the Excel as experts team, and I've asked a question about how do you change a row color according to their status, a little bit about conditional formatting in Excel. So this is a good idea if you're trying to integrate this kind of knowledge into your intranet. I couldn't think of a more sophisticated way really of doing this. I mean, you could use APIs to get chat information coming up on pages and stuff like that, but it's really very hard to get the relative information to the right people, because there's just too much going on out there. The other side of this people and expertise is just searching for people as individuals, and the box below encourages people to update their profile with their skills and stuff like this. At the moment, your profile is going to show things like your department, your location, and things like that. That's not really going to get you. That will get you to the right person, the right department. Your job title may have clues, but quite often it would be good to have a skill section in Azure that you can make searchable. I believe they do have to be added, so you will have to speak to your IT department about doing that. And the kind of last area of this Teams crossover, if you like, is where is it? It was open a minute ago. It's Viva Connections. I had that open before. There we go. Picking up your news from the homepage and just repeating a lot of the content that you have on here. We are working to build API calls. If I just jump back into the homepage here again, you may notice some of these are formatted a little differently. Sorry, I'm just trying to get back to there we go. This menu here, it's formatted a little differently to most link menus. That's one reason is I wanted the font to be a lot bigger. I think the font in those link menus is absolutely tiny. So I turned it into a list, and I created a list of just 6 items that links you with a URL in it and a kind of an icon. You're able to use the icons in the reuse the icons in that icon picker that you see in SharePoint. I'll maybe write that out as a tutorial, and we'll publish that to you later. Then I used a bit of JSON formatting to format the list. This is probably the only techie thing I'm going to talk to you about today, because a lot of you won't understand it, although it does look a bit like gibberish. What I would say about this, if you can see, I'll zoom into this as much as I can. Not exactly easy to read, but you will find, if you know someone that's a reasonably techie person, if they were to read and understand how this stuff works, essentially if there is some plain English in there, font size, font weight, borders. It's essentially a formatting language. It's a formatting language called CSS that you apply with using another language called JSON. Acronyms aside, you will get the hang of it if you're a fairly technical person. It gives you the freedom to take your list information and design anything you want with it. I use this for banners, creating banners and things like that. Anything from list. I do a lot of these little lists that are a bit more kind of interesting than the standard links lists in SharePoint. It's also getting around some of the limitations in SharePoint. Gives you a bit more design freedom. As far as the rest of the page goes, I don't have much more else going on there. This is an alternative banner for when I rotate my banners between this one down here and this design up here to keep people interested in the page changing all the time. If they see a dog appear one day, I think they're more likely to read the message. These are done. If you think about how to use these page design components within SharePoint a little differently. Actually, I've used the background image. This is fairly recent. You may not know about this yet, but in your columns, your section columns kind of area, they've added the ability to allow you to add background colors and images, which is really opened up a kind of box of new toys for me, because I can design things at full screen without using that limited full width banner. The dog is just part of the background. The text is live, the button is live, but they're just text boxes and buttons. But the very newest feature I wanted to see, and you may not even see these yet because I'm not sure if they're 6th of March. They were due to come out in March. We get them for early adoption, but this is something I'm using heavily now. In fact, I'm replacing a lot of my page content with these. These are called editorial cards, and you can put text in there. You can put a photo in the background. You can change the design of them. Just change this one to a split. It's not a great example. There we go. It mixes. It does auto color the fonts. I've just been coloring those fonts with specific colors, but it would change the color to white when you change it, the background color, if you like. I use these quite a bit. Some of them I use with text and image mixed. These ones, the Pizza Hut kind of ones, these are just an image that I got my comms guy to make up for me for a bit more, because I want to use the company font for that one. But these have been replacing the hero for me, because I've always really disliked that hero banner thing, because one, it's too busy, another, it's too big. Especially if you put it at full screen, it takes up more than the entire screen if you're a laptop user. So I think, racing through it a little bit, how are we doing for time, Ryan? I think that's me. I've just about covered my 45 minutes, but that's everything I wanted to cover today.
Yeah, ideal. If you want to open up to questions, we can.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing. Yeah.
I think Graham's answered most of the questions.
Has Graham been typing away? There's been a few questions, yeah. How did the sound get any better? That's my question. I don't know. I've not had any problems with sound there.
It picked up. It seemed to be fine for half the people, and a wee bit ropey at the start. But
okay, well, sorry, apologies for that. We did do a sound check and a video check beforehand, but I think it's just, I don't think it sometimes doesn't perform that great with this many people on, does it?
Yeah. If you have any questions for Andy right now, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll answer them live. I'll just give you a little minute in case you do.
How do you change the background color over more than one section? You want an image to go over two sides? Yeah. I was building most of this demo site on Boxing Day, because I don't like Boxing Day. I'm fine with Christmas. I just don't really understand Boxing Day, to be honest. I was doing this, so yeah, you can do it, but it's not. It's a bit of it depends on whether you feel it's worth it. The way to do it is to take your image, cut it into two halves. You upload you can actually align how the background image sits, so it can be forced so you show the bottom, and it always shows the bottom, and it cuts off from the top depending on the size of the page. And if you take the two images, you take the bottom of your image and put it in the top section. Take the top of your image and put it in the top section. You take the bottom half of your image and put it in the bottom section, and then you change the background alignment, so it's always showing. I'm finding it hard to describe the words for how to get the background to hug the bottom or hug the top, but it would mean that it doesn't change it doesn't change the display. It's that you will see the whole image, but the top of the image and the bottom of the image may be cut off depending to the screen size. I hope that answers the question, although it's a very hard one to kind of describe.
Nice. There's a question around the recording, so absolutely we'll be sending out a copy of the slides and the recording after this, so it should be later today you will receive those.
I'll jump to is it possible to embed JavaScript code into modern pages like classic pages? I'm afraid it's not, and they're not going to reintroduce that feature. That's a security thing. They're looking to end in that kind of injection. We call it code injection in the but it's what you want to have a look at is the SharePoint framework extensions. They take a little while to get you set up on them, and the extension involves a lot of there is code in there. But once you have the extension, an extension is something it basically adds to every page, similar to how an Outlook extension would work. It adds to every page, and it uses your JavaScript that way. And I guess the difference for Microsoft is that they get to pre-read the code goes into the extension. You upload it, and it's server-side code rather than on that client side. If we were to build a hub site and we want to connect to a specific hub with a Teams group, so the documents and everything can be synchronized, would that be possible? How would you do that? I see no reason why a hub can't contain a collection of teams. You go into your admin, your SharePoint admin, and you associate your SharePoint team site with a hub. At that point, it gets that kind of level of connectivity where it would be all the documents in that and using that hub would be readable. I guess it would be the only thing I would suggest is that you probably try to avoid that would introduce all your kind of working documents that you find in Teams potentially to your intranet, which you don't always want that. So a little bit of separation of document libraries is a good idea. I just want to jump back up to a question I missed. Could you show the question from Alan about how I don't quite understand that question about the layouts of document pages? Could you just clarify that one for me?
I think you just wanted to look at the documents page again.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
How you laid it out. Even if you just blast it on the screen, and I can maybe take a screenshot.
Yeah. The documents page. Yeah. Sorry, I get you now. It's the Find Documents page. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know if this isn't the right one. This is like a work in progress. I'm not entirely happy with this one yet. It's not looking as good as the kind of the department page or the expertise page, but it's we're trying to get away from maybe thinking too much about departments and thinking more about what is it you're actually looking for. Because if you have someone looking for a document and they go burrowing around in lots of different departments, they will find more than one copy of the same document or more than one version of the same document, 7 versions maybe, 6 of them incorrect. By having a document files and information page, you can steer people towards the correct content for crucially things like policies and things like that. That's the thinking here. I've not kind of really properly thought it out or fleshed it out yet. It's a bit of a work in progress. But there was another question about Viva Connections. I'm not wild on it either, to be honest with you. But it's Microsoft are trying to figure out ways how do they integrate this SharePoint content or the intranet content with Teams. The problem with Teams is that it has no center. It is a disconnected pile of groups with no homepage, which organizations dislike because they have no way the universal way of communicating. You have the all companies channel, but I think there would be dispute over how many people really even read the all companies channel. It's in bigger organizations there would be too much content to produce, if you like, or to read. And I completely agree with you on the cards. I don't like the cards, and I don't like the font sizes. The font size, I don't really understand why they're so small. There's so much work going into accessibility now, and Microsoft's advice is to zoom in. I don't really feel that's keeping with the spirit of accessibility, if you like. Transcript and slide afterwards. Yeah.
Yes, we'll do the slides. We don't. I don't think we share the transcript, but we do the slides and the copy of the recording.
Okay. Yeah.
I think there's another question in there for you.
Yeah. On versions, how would you educate the content admins to replace files instead of uploading new versions and leaving the old one. Yeah, so _1 brackets new you underscore copy, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that is a bit of a cultural change for people. We work with a couple of companies in the engineering space who really don't like to use. They don't believe in automated versioning and stuff like that. It's quite so they underscore AM comments and put stuff like that in. They append. It really is a bit of a cultural change. But yeah, it's you really just have to ask them to trust in the system a little bit, and you will find. I think you'll find some of the newer users will probably be more comfortable with it about resaving files. Quite a lot of people do instinctively save backup copies. I can't tell you exactly how to change that. Content admins, they should probably know better. I would call them into a little course and basically take them through the version. Reassure them that SharePoint, every single library in SharePoint has versioning switched on, so you could reassure them that way that everything is version controlled until you tell them it shouldn't be. That basically, you switch it off, not on.
Okay, I think that's all the questions for now. So thank you very much for Andy for your presentation. Thank you for everyone joining us. Like I say, if you have any more questions afterwards, feel free to get in touch, and like I say, we'll send out the slides and the recording later today. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks for your time, everyone. Cheers.